Hi, everyone. My son and I shared a unique opportunity last Shabbos. Our inspiring friend and family advisor, a Rav's Rav, Rabbi Avram Herman, delivered a masterful drasha about what Erev Pesach Shachalios B'Shabbos looked like in the Midbar, in the Mikdash, and today. He contrasted the long time it took to start the Seder in the Mikdash and all the preparations for it on that Motzei Shabbos with the swiftness, with the chipazon that we're called upon to try to preserve in our own Golos-based Nedarim today. As my son and I discussed and reviewed this year afterwards, my son asked me if I thought that in the future all of the amazing Yerushalayim restaurants would have family seating for the Sedarim of the future. He described which ones he thought might be the most tasteful for us to get reservations for now in advance. I replied that I was pretty sure that there was no reason, because I'm pretty sure the restaurants would be certainly closed. My proof, I told him, was from the Gemara. The Talmud declares Amar of Abin, Amar of Ada, Amar of Yitzchak. Rav Avin quotes Rav Ada in the name of Rav Yitzchak, who stated, why are there no ginosar fruits in Yerushalayim, that sweet ginosar fruit that the rabbis of the Talmud identify as the tastiest in the world? He says, the reason why they should not be found in Jerusalem is so that the people who come up to be Ola Regal shall not say, if we traveled up to Yerushalayim, and we should not say that had we only come only to eat the ginos, our fruit, dayenu, it would have been enough. Because if we were to do that, nimtzeis aliyah shalo lishma, if that were to be the case, then the idea of being ola regel, of going up to Yerushalayim, would be with ulterior motives and not for the sake of the mitzvah. Which got me thinking, is it really so bad to have good places to visit and eat when going to Yerushalayim? After all, what's the big deal if one's primary motivation is to visit the Beis HaMikdash, but along the way you take in some good touring? Is it wrong to say dayenu, to thank Hashem for the small stuff, while moving on to the big picture? And I'm thinking about this especially this week, as we begin our discussion of the different karbanos in the Mikdash as well. You see, in regard to the menachos, the flour karbanos, we're told, kol ha-mincha asher takrivu la-Hashem, whenever we bring a flour korban to Hashem, lo seyaseh chametz, we can't allow it to rise and become chametz. Ki chol se'or v'chol devash lo saktiru mimenu ishel la-Hashem. We also can't add honey to it as well, or allow it to go ahead and have become sourdough. And the reason, the Torah tells us that we can't have karbanos with sourdough or honey. But what's the big deal with a little sourdough or sweetness? Why does it bother Hashem so much to have a little sweetness in the bread? And moreover, the Talmud adds that while you can't put the honey into the karban, you can use the fruits as a fuel for the fire. And in fact, the Torah itself allows these items, the chametz and the honey, to be brought as a first, either with the seor on shulos as part of the shtei halechem offering, or in regard to the fruits as part of the bikurim. So if one's not allowed to go ahead and have these things, why are we allowed to have it in those karbanos then? And while we're at it, in the very next pasuk, the Torah does a 180. For while you can't have seor and vash, sourdough and honey on the mizbeach, salt is a very important necessity. The Torah does insist, al kol karbancha takriv melach, that you need to have salt on all your karbanos. And so why the embargo on the sweet in the Mikdash, and apparently in Yerushalayim, while supporting the salty? And why is that embargo lifted somewhat in the Mikdash on Shavuos? Perhaps the Torah is not trying to impose a certain taste in our lives, but rather trying to help us figure out a certain blend or mix. You see, the Netziv recognizes a critical difference between salt and honey. On the one hand, too much salt is not good for you. Not only does it not work for your blood pressure, the Netziv adds that it destroys the soul. However, in proper proportions, salt dissolves into food. And when it does, in the proper proportions, it wakes up the other flavors in the other food and brings out the best in them. And so thus, when in the mikdash, we want the ability to use salt on our karbanos, just like we want to in our food, to bring out the best in the karban and symbolically in ourselves as well. Sweetness, like honey, has a different effect. Instead of blending with the other tastes in a dish, honey tends to overpower the dish. It confuses the primary ingredients as it becomes the main taste itself, coating and often disguising the quality of that which was coated. Think about your own interest in foods. Once a sweet taste is introduced, it's almost impossible to appreciate the richness of the rest of the plate. No, honey doesn't mix, it takes over. And when it comes to karbanos and the purpose of offering them, we don't want our intentions mixed, confused, and especially not overtaken. Hashem appreciates the purity of the karban with all of the symbolism attached to it, and he bans the sweetness on the karban itself, keeping the intention unadulterated. The Klei Yakar adds that honey and sweetness is also symbolic of desire. And while desire might be necessary at times, we would not have children without desire, for instance. It's not a mission on its own. And so honey can fuel a karban, like romantic passion can fuel a successful relationship, but it can't be a karban. Just like romantic passion cannot be the sum total of a healthy, enduring relationship. And in our relationship with Hashem, it's only on Shavuos, which highlights the giving of the Torah and the beginning of the relationship, where we call upon the passion to light the spark, but to continue it with substance thereafter. Perhaps for this reason, Hashem didn't put the sweet ginos, our fruit, in Yerushalayim. He didn't want us to limit our spiritual experience in the holy city by being focused on the overwhelmingly sweet. To quote one of the great 20th century Yerushalmi Jews, Rav Yosef Shalom Elyashiv Zatzal, the sweet fruits of ginosar confuse and intoxicate a person. If we were to find them in Yerushalayim, we might become obsessed with gathering them, consuming them, and finding a way to take them back with us after the holiday. And in the process, squander the real reason for our trip to Yerushalayim in the first place, the opportunity to observe and engage in Avodas Hashem, in the service of Hashem. We can't say dayenu to that. It would be a terrible pity. And so hence we're left with ginos, our fruit, near the Kinneret, for a trip with a different focus, perhaps at a different time. And so while we cannot identify ginos, our fruit today, and in the past we might not have had the opportunity to be in Yerushalayim to experience Yom Tov to its fullest, the message of the sweet and the fruit still ring loudly. All too often in our lives we get sent off course, losing opportunities for spiritual growth, deepened relationships, and a richness in life in general, because we get too bogged down in the sweet. The efforts of a good Yontif experience does not solely rest in the quality of the meat and the wine served. The quality of a Shabbos tefillah opportunity is not in the 12 tribes of herring at the Kiddush or the open bar. And yes, the success of a Torah opportunity is not in the speaker's jokes or his or her choice of attire or the wacky stories he or she offers. While each of these may enhance and enrich the Torah or Avoda experience, we can't say dayenu to that in life. For if we did, we'd been walking away without the most important part of life, the chance to do the will of Hashem and to bask in his glow. And so while hopefully we will get the chance to experience the opportunity to bring the karbanos speedily and fully experience what it means to serve Hashem in his holy city, Yerushalayim, until we get there, we can seek the full avodas Hashem in each activity and Jewish experience by looking beyond what we're physically getting and seeking the depth. That would be a life that is indeed a true karban, one that is fantastic and amazing in the eyes of Hashem. Wishing you and yours a Shabbat Shalom and a Chag Kasher v'Sameach, and a Shabbat Shalom and Chag Sameach to all.